Hello, everybody. It's Brian here. Happy Cheap Trick Day. Actually, Cheap Trick Day was a few days ago. The only reason I know that there is a Cheap Trick Day is because of Emma. Her channel is 8 Vinyl Low. So she told us all in her recent video where she launched her contest, the All Tricks contest, which revolves a bit around Cheap Trick. And there's a really interesting prize for this, different if you live outside of the country as opposed to if you live inside the country. So I thought I would take part in this because I think it's a pretty interesting contest. I've met Emma. I really like her. I haven't done a lot of videos recently. You know, life has been really busy, work has been busy, and I think I've only done 2 short videos in the last couple of weeks. So I need to get back in there. So I like the questions, so that's enough introduction, right? Let's just get going. So the first prompt is, I Want You to Want Me, an underrated album. Well, I'm going to show an album from a band that's underrated and has been underrated since the day they arrived on the scene. I'm going to show their third record from 1986. It's from the band called The Chameleons. This is obviously a repressing. This is Strange Times, as I say, for 1986. Now, you could choose any Chameleons record and say that they're underrated, because I think they are. This band, I don't think ever really got its due. I'm choosing this one because I really like it, and also because my favorite Chameleons track is on here. It's called Swamp Thing. Really fantastic band. If you like, it's a post-punk band, I guess you'd say. If you like, I mean, there's a long list of bands that they're like, maybe Echo and the Bunnymen, Susie and the Banshees, Sad Lovers and Giants for a little obscure one, The Sound, maybe even Calm Sad Angels. If you like any of those bands, you'll probably like this. And I know this band has a really dedicated fan collection or fan group. They're really well known in some areas. They tour, they get people to come out, but I think they kind of missed the boat in terms of notoriety, like some of those other bands, and didn't really get the credit they deserved. This is, as I say, a reissue with some bonus tracks, and it is fantastic. I can't say enough about it. There's lyrics in there. There's 2 records in there. Any record from this band is surely something you will like if you like that other kind of the bands I mentioned. So really excellent record. In Color, a visually striking record, and the absolute first one that came to mind. Well, first I was thinking, colored vinyl, but I'm going with jackets here. I guess it could be either. This is the first real one I considered because it's an obvious one. King Crimson, In the Court of the Crimson King, this kind of prog masterpiece from 1969 with Robert Fripp. Full effect this way. Now, this is a beautiful copy given to me by David Atkinson. It replaced my really old non-gatefold, beat-up Canadian version of this, which sounded really terrible. And imagine not having this on a gatefold where you can't even do this. So you need the gatefold edition. The Canadian edition I had was terrible, and you get this beautiful art on the inside. And of course, this is probably best known for the track in the 21st Century Schizoid Man. Fantastic. Now, I did read recently that this was painted by a young man who only ever did one painting, and it's this one using a mirror, drawing himself. But then he died at age 24, and I can't remember why he died. Apparently, this painting is now owned by Robert Fripp, or he has possession of it. I'm sure we all know that record. Number 3, Surrender, an album that grew on you over time. This may seem a bit of a surprising answer for some people who know me, because you will know that I love this artist. And, it's a really depressing album about, I guess, a couple struggle with all sorts of things related to drug addiction and abuse. And I'm talking about Lou Reed's Berlin from 1973. So I find I'm in the same boat as many of the reviewers at the time, because this record did not get good reviews. Since that time, it's been seen to be an important record, but I was in the same position as they were, although I didn't hear it in 1973, obviously. So I came from the other end after hearing things later on, like Walk on the Wild Side, Satellite of Love, and Sweet Jane, although I didn't probably know the Velvet Underground at the time. But this is an album that was a real slow burner. I found it really depressing, harrowing. Kind of the subject matter was kind of awful in many ways. But after years of listening to it, I came to really appreciate this record. It's a really strong Lou Reed record. Now, I always say I hate when reviewers get it wrong and they give an album a terrible review only to come back 20 years later and decide they liked it. But that's exactly what happened with me on this record. I didn't really like it. By the way, this is a pressing from France, if you're interested. And I'm sure many people will already know this record, but it's a killer record after many attempts. All right, number 4. Budokan Energy, a high energy album. I was going to choose a live album because Budokan is a live record, but instead I went for one record from this band. I could have chosen any record from this band, and that's Ministry. This happens to be The Land of Rape and Honey, which, as I've said before, was the slogan of the town Tisdale, Saskatchewan, because they had agricultural products there like rapeseed and honey. They've since changed their slogan of their town to something like was it Where Opportunity Grows or something like that? But this record from start to finish is a total non-stop aggressive record, which is truly fantastic. So yeah, if you know this record, you know what's going on here, but just a fantastic record. Number 5, She's Tight, a no skip album. I mean, I don't really skip songs on the turntable. I guess you could do it. I don't really do that. Even when I had CDs, I didn't really skip things. I think, honestly, I could have chosen 100 different records or more for this album, but I kind of interpreted it as being a record where there are no weak songs, or a record where you think one song just isn't as good as the rest, you know, the idea of actually physically skipping. Although in the past I have made cassette copies of records and CDs in which I've left songs out, but this one could represent any number of records. But this is the National, High Violet from 2010. I mean, a lot of the records are honestly no skip records, but I chose this one because this is one that even my kids like, and that's sort of something important. In fact, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but whenever I get a new piece of audio equipment, whether it just be a sound bar, I got one recently for the TV. Well, it wasn't that recently. If a kid gets a Bluetooth speaker, or if I'm trying out a new piece of audio equipment, I always put on Blood Buzz Ohio for some reason. And the funny thing is, so do the kids. I got headphones recently, and one of them was playing this track as the demo track for the headphones, which I thought was hilarious. This is a fantastic record, start to finish. There's not a bad song in here. Really excellent. All right, and then the last question is kind of a bonus question, and it's share a Cheap Trick memory, share a personal story or connection you have with the band. That's a really tough one for me because although I like Cheap Trick, I think I have 8 records from Cheap Trick. I've never seen them in concert, ever. I don't know why that is, but I will tell you a little story. This is not even that interesting. This, like many other people, was the first Cheap Trick record I ever heard, and it's because of my cousins, who were, in large measure, heavy metal people. They loved, Iron Maiden, all sorts of heavy metal, and one day they came round with a boombox of some sort, and they had the cassette for this, and they played it over and over and over again, and I felt that I really liked it. I think it was the first time I'd ever heard the band. Sometime later, I went out and bought a copy of this record. And of course, I don't have the full concert, but I do have this one, which I do really love. I liked it so much that I went and bought the Dream Police. And then I sold that record a few years after having it because I really got tired of it. I wish I had kept it. I wouldn't put the Dream Police in my top 5 Cheap Trick records. And since then, I've gone back and purchased, as I say, I have 8 records. So I do like them. They probably don't get the attention they deserve in my house, but I don't really have a story for this, except to say that I can thank my cousins for introducing me to this record. They usually introduced me to albums I wasn't really interested in, but this is one that kind of stuck with me, so maybe that's a kind of a breakthrough for them. Anyway, I encourage you to take part in Emma's contest. I will leave a link, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.